Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Group Captain Ashutosh Kumar, a veteran. On behalf of IIRF, I welcome you all to this very interesting session, specially designed for our very special audience today. I thank all our ladies present in the audience who have taken the time out of their busy schedule and joined us on our request. I think the topic depiction of women in ancient Indian scriptures will be able to tell us how the status and the role of women in Indian society evolved through ages, through many trials and tribulations. We are fortunate to have with us today some very knowledgeable speakers to share their views and ideas with us. Our talk begins with Group Captain R.S. Mehta, Shaurya Chakra, who, on retirement from the Indian Air Force in 2012, served in the Amity University for 10 years. He continues to be a visiting faculty, pursuing PhD in the same university. He is a prolific writer, author, speaker, and the director of research as well as the founding general secretary of Indus International Research Foundation, hosting this event. Our next speaker will be Dr. P.K. Gupta. Dr. Gupta is the Registrar of Indian Institute of Foreign Trade in New Delhi. Apart from his stint in the Indian Air Force and his current professional career in an educational institution, he commands an in-depth knowledge of Indian scriptures and has dug deep into the Upanishads and Vedantic knowledge that constitute the Indian heritage of which every Indian is proud of. Our next speaker is Ms. Gagandeep Kaur, who is a prominent practicing psychologist and the founder director of Unique Psychological Services in Delhi. She is a double gold medalist with MPhil in clinical psychology. She is a mental health expert who caters to various psychological needs of child concerns, adolescent issues, parenting, relationship counseling, depression, anxiety, old age concerns, and lot more. Apart from having more than 14 years experience in counseling, Ms. Gagandeep is also a prolific writer and speaker, featuring frequently on various TV channels and magazines. She has authored 24 books and was nominated for Nilofer Award at AIMS in 2009. But the most interesting part is that Ms. Gagandeep has an extensive knowledge of Ramayana, Mahabharata, and Gita, which, as per her, is nothing but an epic description and analysis of every conceivable complexity of human relationship. She'll be giving her own perspective on how women were depicted and treated in these two epics. Our next speaker will be veteran Group Captain Professor D.N. Bajpayee, who's basically an MTech from IIT Delhi. He has the distinction of being the first director of information technology in the Indian Air Force. After his retirement in 2005, he worked as the executive director in the APJ Institute for a decade and since then devoting his life in the study of ancient Indian literature. His reading interest spans from Upanishads to Ramcharitmanas to Mirza Ghalib, and he has published an interesting compilation of the nuggets of ancient wisdom in the form of a book recently. Today, he will talk on the concept of Ardhanarishwar in the Indian philosophy. Each speaker gets a time of 15 to 20 minutes, which will be followed by a brief question-answer session from the audience. The session will be concluded with a closing address of President IIRF, Brigadier Sandeep Kumar. With this brief introduction, I now hand over the podium to Group Captain Mehta. Mehta sir, kindly take over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Group Captain Ashutosh, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. When my friend Alok Mishra, he insisted that I must talk, though I am the host of this event, I could not say no to him. And the topic that was given to me, that was discussed, is to talk on the women. Of course, I will be giving the cross culture view of how the various cultures have viewed their women. So I thought to first explore what is a woman. Now, at my age of 65, when we have always been surrounded by women in our life, starting from mother and sisters and cousins, and in the school and colleges and university, we always had our girl students as friends. And later on, yes, we got married to my wife. She gave two beautiful daughters. So, for a man to talk about a woman, it should not be a very big, difficult task. But when I really started to prepare my talk and sat down to define how I will define a woman, I thought it was not such an easy topic after all. I thought let me see what the others in the world people are thinking about think about the topic of women. So I just casually went to the Google, and also gave a click to the Chat GP, and I realized that this arena of what is a woman is is full of confusion. There are a lot to be explored. It's not that everything is in black and white. So I stumbled upon a book. The name of this book is What Men Think About Women. It claimed that it has got 365 pages. Though the author was anonymous, I thought that this is the right document for me to understand what the world thinks or the men think about women. So I opened this book, and lo, I find that all the pages, there is not a single word in it. All the pages were blank, all 365 pages. Now, this may sound to you to be a joke, but I can tell you that it has got a tremendous message. It is a resounding revelation to many, especially men, that how little they know about a woman. And now I will just try to explain to you. See, as a man, we are conditioned more than a woman to have a view about the woman that we are told to us. Like, it is very, very difficult for a man to look at a woman anything other than a mother, a sister, a girlfriend, a wife, or a daughter. Now, imagine of a woman who is neither a mother nor a wife, maybe by some chance that she is also not a sister. She's on her own. So what will you call her? So it doesn't occur to a man that a woman can also be an individual. So a man has got a very fixated view of a woman in her stereotyped role in the society that has been conditioned. The society has conditioned men to look at the woman in a certain manner, and so the woman also in turn gets conditioned to believe what the society wants it to believe to be. I looked at the Western because my topic is a comparative study of the status of women in the cross culture in different ages. So I looked at the Western literature, and I stumbled upon another interesting this phrase or rather sentence. "O woman, woman, thou art a mystery and a peace, and he who thinks to know thee is totally mad." Now, this was written by George Sand, and I found that George Bernard Shaw, Shakespeare, and Schopenhauer, this philosopher, Jean-Paul Sartre, every great Western mind has at some point of time expressed this sentiment that they don't really understand what a woman is. So I thought, okay, if the modern intellectuals are so unsure and so unclear about what a woman is, let me go to the past and check what our wise sages and seers had to say about women. Now, since our topic, this talk is all about the status of women in depicted in Indian literature, so I will not go to the Indian literature or the Indian past ancient literature, or I will go rather to the non-Indian literature, because my subsequent speakers are going to cover that, and I don't want to duplicate it. So I went to my favorite non-Indian scholar, and my favorite is, of course, the book is Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. Little I will tell you about Lao Tzu, though it will be a deviation. Lao Tzu is, nobody knows the name of this wise man. He was supposed to be the wisest man walking on earth in his own time. Everybody believed so. And since nobody knew his name, so he was just called the old man. That's Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu in Chinese means the old man. And this and the legend about him is that he never gave any sermon or preach. By the way, China has no, basically they don't believe in God and there is no religion, and there are only two very strong, prominent schools of philosophy. One is Taoism and another is Confucianism. The Confucianism has been started by, of course, Confucius, and the Taoism, which is a very popular at one point of time, and still it is being practiced, was started by Lao Tzu. Now, Lao Tzu is, while Confucius, if you know, he is more practical about the state, about relationship, about family, hierarchy in society, and how the society can be organized and harmony can be brought into politics and ruled relationship and the family relationship. He believes that there is, every relationship has got a hierarchy, and every person must know his place in the hierarchy and conduct himself as per that hierarchy. If he doesn't, and the hierarchy brings a lot of authority to him or to her, but at the same time, a lot of responsibility towards people, hierarchy above and the below. So anyway, that is about Confucius. What Taoism is all about, the Tao has been more inward looking, and he has been dealing with the concept of existence, why we are here, what we are expected to do, how to conduct ourselves, what to make out of everything. It is more like Upanishad. Anyway, this is not related to my topic. I have shared this information because I am talking about Lao Tzu and Tao Te Ching, so I had to tell you this. Now, so I thought, let me see what Lao Tzu had to say, but he has not talked so much about women, by the way. But I was struck by his first verse of his book, and it said, I translated into in English, it says, the Tao that can be explained is not the real Tao. Now, this statement sounded some connection to my predicament, of my problem of asking what is a woman. So what in a lighter vein I would say, what I concluded, that Tao that can be explained of is not the real Tao, as Lao Tzu has said, and Tao is what it is Brahma. So the Brahma that can be explained is not the real Brahma, and so I bring that analogy to women. A woman that can be explained, I suppose, I'm afraid, is not the real woman. So woman is much more than what they can be explained of. Before that, I come into the serious part of my discussion, let me give you one more little insight or rather a observation. So while men folk are quite confused about, if you ask what is a woman, they will find it difficult to define. This is not the case with the woman. It seems the women are very clear in their mind. And ask any woman, and she will say, "What is a man?" And she will say, "Man is just a grown-up child, a brat who has grown up in body." And that's why I think all wives in their old age starts treating their probably old husband as a child in the house. Anyway, I will not say more than that. In the lighter vein, it is a joke. So there's another one, the gentleman by the name Mark Kruger. I want to mention him, that he also tried to explain that there is a difference between the man's brain and the woman brain, and he put it very, very hilariously and humorously. But I think there is a lot of merit in it, that there is a difference in thought process of a man and a woman, and the man thinks very differently about many things. And one thing is brought, that once the man does his duty and everything, the best thing for him is to left alone, and he wants to be quiet. And that's why he has talked about one nothing box. He says the man thinks and deals with everything in compartment like a box, and that his favorite box is the nothing box, where he is the most comfortable and peaceful. And women don't understand these things. So these were all on the lighter side. This is digression from my topic. Now I'll come to the serious part of my. Yeah, what is a woman? Now there is a one very famous woman philosopher in France. She's called Simone de Beauvoir, and she is not only a renowned philosopher, but she is also a feminist with a difference. And she had written a book, The Second Sex. I have read this book. It's a fantastic. If you really want to know, it is a very revealing. The question, jokingly, which I said, that it is very difficult to understand what a woman is. If you read this book, you will understand what a woman thinks about herself. Anyway, then in this, Simone de Beauvoir created a storm in the intellectual world in those days. Women was not taken too seriously, and nobody used to talk about them. So she created a storm in the intellectual world by her statement: "One is not born, but rather become a woman." Uh, After a deep study of Western philosophy, history, and literature, actually Simone de Beauvoir concluded that the concept of woman that popularly existed in the minds of an average Western male, and I am telling you, this is also no difference for the Indian males, that popularly exist in mind to an average male, are mostly formed from the standpoint of the famous men, powerful and famous men. They are the one who have defined women, and that is the definition everybody accepts. Uh, for the first time, it is Simone de Beauvoir who, in the Western thought process, she brought out that women are not born as women; they are born as individuals. It is only later that they are cast into different images, and different role models are created by the societies for their women. Various societies have created different role models, and then when a woman is born, she is crammed and put into that role model. Escaping from these role models becomes very difficult for a woman, and many such role models are rewarding, but many are not. And women protest and detest it. Uh, what I am meaning to say, that even as a man, even I am conditioned in my mind that it was inconceivable for me to look at a woman anything other than a mother, a sister, a wife, a girlfriend, or daughters. to think that a woman is an individual apart from all these things is, to an average man, it doesn't occur to that person, and that creates a lot of problem. So that's how the entire Western thought process has been. That's why you will notice that in our poster, this sentiment has been echoed. That is the way you will notice that our posters, we have asserted that the societies, cultures, nation, or for that matter, any civilization should not be judged merely by its economic attainment. The sophistication and the refinement of that society must be judged by the place it gives to its women and the way it treats them. So that becomes the theme of this entire talk. Now we come to my topic proper, and that is the cross culture status of women and how it has evolved, how different cultures have. So I will not go into very deep example and citation because the topic is very vast. So I will just give my conclusions and my own impressions. I have been a student history, and I have been teaching history in MIT University for a long time, and I also have taught ancient European history. So from that background, I will just share my basic conclusions about all the cultures in the West and other cultures comparatively. So here I go. I will period I will say is 1500 BC to 327 BC. 327 BC is important because before 327 BC, Indian culture was completely pure. There was no outside contamination. It was entirely on its own. It was in 327 BC. I'm sorry, this is not AD, it should be BC. Alexander invaded, and the Hellenic culture came to India and did leave a lot of impact. Now, I will not talk much on the ancient Indian civilization and how the image of women got impacted by the various invasions and by internal issues of our own religion, culture, and tradition that degraded the status of women in Indian society, starting from the Vedic period when the women were gender equal and they had a very good status, and later post-Vedic period how it is deteriorated. I'm sure uh, my next speaker will be covering that part. So I will leave it and I will move on to the Egyptian, Zoroastrian, and the Syrian cultures, and I will pitch it for 500 BC to 700 AD. Again, 700 AD is important because 700 AD is when the Islam came to power and they started conquering various parts of the world and converting them into Islam. These are the two photos that I show you. It is the Egyptian and Zoroastrian women, and their tradition and customs and their culture was completely wiped out by the Islamists. And you can see the right hand side, the picture is of the Zoroastrian, who remnants are there in India, in Bombay. You know, the Parsi community, they are the remaining Zoroastrians, and see their attire, they are quite similar to the Indian. Now, you know the status of women. I will just mention that though the women did not enjoy equality in these cultures, but their status and condition was not very bad. The main issue is the right of inheritance, right to access to education, and right to property. These things were not very bad in these societies. And you will remember that in Egypt, you must have heard about Cleopatra. She is the only lady in the ancient history of this age who went to the pinnacle of the power, and ruled a very powerful state of Egypt. So you can imagine that the women were not that bad off in these cultures. Now I will come to China. In China also you will find that again the date is significant because around 3000 BC, like all other ancient civilizations, they must have started around this time. But 1911 AD is important because this is the time Chiang Kai-shek had overthrown the last king ruler, the dynasty, and started form the democratic form of government, where a lot of Western influence came into China. Before that, China had a uninterrupted, continuous tradition of cultural tradition of last, say, 5000 years. Briefly, the Mongols came and ruled China, but Mongols were not too cultured people. In fact, they got Sinicized, but China, which is the dominant, basically the Han culture, they did not get much affected by the Mongolian rule. Now, again, the status of the women, if you see in this period, was not again equal. They did not enjoy the political rights, right of inheritance and other things, but the general condition was quite okay, and they didn't have so much access to education, as we don't find many women scholars mentioned in the Chinese culture. But I will say that the condition was not too bad. So then comes the Greco-Roman culture. Now, Greco-Roman culture is again significant because it presents a contrast to all the Oriental cultures that I have just now spoken about. The difference between Oriental cultures and the Greco-Roman culture was that Oriental culture does not have the tradition of slavery. And never there was a slave trade or having slave in your household or in the society. But Greco-Roman culture was a slavery-based culture. The Greeks and Romans, which is the bedrock of the Western culture, claimed to be the mother of democracy because they had institutionalized the system of rule by the Senate rather than the king. But the fact remains that this society was very, very unequal. There were two types of citizen. One had all the facility and the other half had nothing. They were the slaves. And I have taught ancient European history in Amity University for some time now, and I was appalled to share with you that the status of women in these societies were just above the slaves. They had absolutely no right. They were treated as property. The only difference between the slave and the woman was that the slave did not have access to the prosperity of their owner. Their living conditions were appalling, whereas the women were owned by the men folk and kept in under lock and key in the house. They were not allowed to come out and take part in any of the social activities. They could not come out alone. They had no access to education, and they lived a life of confinement. But the difference with slave and them was that they had access to all the luxuries and the prosperity of their owner, and so they led a prosperous life. So this is a very contrasting figure, and subsequently, of course, the Christianity came and improved the lot of the women by a lot of good things. And then subsequently, of course, Renaissance movement, then came the revolution and the democratic movement, and subsequently women started getting right in the Western society. Let's come to the Islamic culture. And Islamic culture, by the photos that you can see, you can find it is a statement in itself how the woman spirit is now caged and confined into what you see in the photo. I don't have to explain much, but I just want to inform my audience that though it is general perception is that the Islam has done a lot of not so good for women, but actually it has done a lot of good for the women of the era and the place where to belong to. Actually, living condition in Arab countries, desert were very bad, and the women were very, very badly treated there before the coming of the Islam. Islam is the only religion which, after coming, actually gave a lot of protection to their women. And it is the first religion who, in an institutionalized manner, made laws and rules, sharias and other diktats, by which they preserve the rights of the women in a marriage, in a family, their inheritance, their right. So in that way, for its own time, Islam was a very progressive thing to happen to the woman. But subsequently, of course, the degeneration took place and wrong interpretation of Sharia and of course the teaching of the Muhammad, and that has now degenerated the condition. And I will not comment beyond this. To you people know more what is. So now I will conclude and complete my presentation. I'm sorry I've taken a little long because a lot of interruptions were there. I will just share some interesting facts that the women in England did not have the voting rights equal to men as late as 1980. We think that they are very egalitarian, very advanced, but the women there did not have the voting right for a very, they got it recently. 1918 is not very far. And American Supreme Court, if you know, last year withdrew America's women's right to abortion. Now we think that they are very progressive, very, but just imagine, and this has happened only last year. The Supreme Court has withdrawn that their right to abortion. Of course, the state have got different laws, power to make laws, and therefore, in many states, abortion is still legal, but Supreme Court has done. And even today, you will be shocked to know that there is no paid maternity leave for women in America. This is very shocking, but this is true. You can verify and you can check. Equal Pay for Equal Work Act was passed in USA only in 1963. Thank God. And only in India, women deities like Durga, Lakshmi, Saraswati, and Kali are worshipped. No other religion, not in Christianity, not in Islam, not in China, not in Syria. You take it for the Zoroastrian. Nowhere the woman was worshipped the way it is worshipped, and this is unique about the Indian culture. And I know maybe in the societal level, women condition is still not all that good. Lot need to be done, but the very fact that intellectual and spiritual level, we treat our women like a deity, and we recognize the stop sharing. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Group Captain Mehta, for the very informed discussion and your talk. Actually, each one of us are here because of a woman who created us, and all of us know it. It's really a very interesting topic, and I'm sure even the ladies on the call will have a lot of things to talk about men, so we will not go into that because that is not the topic of the day. I had read one book. I'll very briefly mention about it, and I think many of the audience or many of the speakers and audience here would have read that book. That is Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. It is a very thin book, and I think bestseller kind of book. I was not very impressed by the book because I found it more of a comic than any kind of serious reading. So anyway, I will not refer to it more. So thank you so much, sir. And we really feel more informed with your talk. And now we'll invite and request the next speaker, Dr. Gupta, to come and give his talk. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for the IIRF for inviting me for this talk here. Since I'm going to talk about the Vedic ages, which are characterized by the knowledge and knowledge of the seers. Mangalakaram, Daputam Yena Characharam, Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Guruve Nama, Ajnanatimirandhasya, Jnananjanam Shalakaya, Chakshurunumilitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Guruve Nama, Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurur Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Nama. Our great sages who inhabited this earth during the Vedic age, which is supposed to be dated by the Western philosophers and historians of more than at least 3,000 years ago. In my opinion, they are utterly wrong. They have got it wrong. This Mother Earth, especially this part of Mother Earth that we know as Bharatvarsha, has been inhabited for lakhs and lakhs years ago. Actually, the date of 3000 years comes through the written literature of Vedas. Before that, the Vedas were passed on through Shruti medium. Nevertheless, during the Vedic age, the women were assigned a very high place in the society. They shared an equal standing with the menfolk and enjoyed a kind of liberty that actually had societal picture. The ancient philosophical concept of Shakti in India, the feminine principle of energy, has emerged from this age. This later has took form of the worship of female idols and goddesses. In fact, there is a hymn in the Yajurveda which reads as follows: Sa Vishvayu, Sa Vishwakarma, Sa Vishwaveda, Indrasya, Swabhagam, Somen Atmachmi, Vishnu Havyam Raksha. Meaning thereby, Sa is the she, the lady or the woman, is the life of all universe. She is the creator, the Vishwakarma. She is the one who holds all as mother, Vishwadhyaya. She is the part of the one who has controlled the senses, that is the Indra, the male form, or the one who is full of life, the Soma, the one who could brought her properly, the Vishnu, and it enjoins upon all of us to protect her as she is the solution and the medication that we all have. At other places, the Yajurveda says, Istri Brahma Bhavuvid, meaning thereby the woman must be the creator. Other than the Vedas, one of the famous shlokas that we have heard, or probably it is from the Manu Smriti, is the Yasyanaryastu Pujyate, Ramante Tatra Devata, Yatra Statuna Pujante, Sarvatra Afala Kriya. Meaning, where woman is respected everywhere, goes the good, and there resides the cheerfulness. And where she doesn't get proper respect, love, and care, the destruction comes no matter what you do. So that is how the Vedic ages, the women were perceived. If we look more, we will get tons of shlokas and Ved mantras about indicating the empowered vision of the position of the women in the Vedic society. Let us have a closer look at the status of women in these times in respect of their education, marriage, married life, religious and spiritual life, etc. As far as education goes, the Vedic literature praises the birth of a scholarly daughter as a girl should also be brought up and educated with great effort and care. And all forms of knowledge are aspect of that girl, and all women throughout the world are thy forms. Women who so desire in the Vedic times could undergo the sacred thread ceremony, which these days is now restricted to the males only, that is known as Upnayana Sanskar, which is only meant for males now. The mention of the female scholars and the sages of the Vedic age, there are plenty, they abound. Actually, Vak, Ambrayani, Romasa, Gargi, Maitreyi, Kona, and there are many others who corroborates that the women were absolutely empowered in the Vedic times. In the Vedic period, we also notice that by many women scholars, they were well versed in holy texts and the Vedas. Their knowledge was not limited to the composition of hymns and chants, but they also learned various types of music, performing arts, with their counterparts. While women belonging to the lower communities learned spinning, weaving, and the needlework, the educated women were broadly divided into two groups, mainly Brahmavadinis and Sadyodvasa. The Brahmavadinis were lifelong pupils. They were the pupil of the great sages, and they learned the philosophy and theology throughout their life. On the other hand, the Sadyodvasas continued their studies until they got married. And many of them, these Brahmavadinis, were highly renowned scholars who later became Upadhyayanis. Upadhyayanis means teachers. There were several women poets and philosophers in this era. Many of the proficient wise women were Apala, Ghosha, Viswara, and they used to compose hymns and chants during this period. One of the women which is very, very profoundly mentioned in the Rig Veda is Lopamudra. She was a renowned female preacher of the Vedic era, and who preached 179 hymns in the Rig Veda, which is quite a number, along with Rishi Agastya. In the Vedic times, we see, as far as marriage is concerned, there was a practice of Swamvara, where the girls, usually from the royal families, had the freedom to choose their husbands from among the eligible bachelors who were invited to her house on this occasion, as an indication that they were free to choose their husbands. They also took part in meeting the men socially in their political activities, in the public assemblies. They debated, and various rituals and ceremonies which were conducted in the family, they were equal partners. With their spouses, the women regularly participated in the social and religious rituals. On the spiritual ground, they enjoyed full rights. Various religious ceremonies, sacrifices were jointly performed by both husband and wife. Women were participating sincerely in religious discourses. They were easily able to read or study any sacred literature. There was no religious limitation of bonding to the woman to read such type of books like Vedas or Upanishads. So in the religious field as well, they were not inferior to men at all. While we are still debating whether we are able to know the women properly, the Vedic seers could see that the women were able to contribute substantially higher than the men. In case of acquiring highest knowledge, the Brahma Vidya, even the absolute knowledge, the women were not far from the men, which is proven by many instances in Rig Veda and the other Vedas as well. There were numerous Vedic rishis who were female, both married and unmarried. Actually, they have got the knowledge of the Brahma Vidya. In the Rig Veda, there are dozens of verses which are ascribed to them. Ghosha, Maitreyi, Vishweswara. In Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there are several examples of highly educated women who played great role in societal and spiritual advancement. Gargi, one of the eminent participants, challenged Rishi Yagyavakya. We all know this. With very serious questions about the existence of soul, the Atman, which confounded the learned Rishi a great deal. From the same Upanishad, we have another incident wherein we notice that the spiritual teachings were given by Rishi Yagyavakya to Maitreyi, and the Maitreyi and the Gargi both distinguished themselves in the Brahma Vidya, absolutely. Other highly educated women like Apala and Atreyi were not married. It simply indicates that the marriages were not compulsory. We do not find any reference to the sati or the burning of widows, which came much later in our society. They were absolutely absent during the Rig Vedic times. On the other hand, the Vedic hymns refer to the remarriage of the widows rather than their self-immolation. The burning of widows on the funeral pyre with the husband might have been practiced by the Aryans in the early ages, but in reality, the Rig Vedic period, the women were made to lie next to her dead husband. And however, just before the pyre was lit, she was asked to come down, and a prayer, such a beautiful prayer, has been invoked, where she has been enjoined that the gods grant her a very prosperous life, enjoying the bliss of children and wealth. Can you imagine a person who has just got widowed the Vedic rishis are praying for her children, that she be blessed with children and a very great and prosperous life. Widows of that age were also permitted to marry, the remarry, and this was absolutely normal in those times. In order to give some more clarity, I would like to mention some of the eminent female rishis and what transpired during their lives. One of them, as I have already mentioned, was Lopamudra. Lopamudra was the wife of great sage Agastya, and she is known for her command over the Sanskrit language. Interestingly, the Lopamudra word itself has very deep meaning. The Lopamudra means the one who is absolutely absorbed in oneself. Atmasthita is Lopamudra. She is she was one of the Brahmavadinis, Rishi Paddhati, in the Rig Veda, and she has a long conversation in Rig Veda with sage Agastya, where it shows great intelligence and goodness on her part. As the legend goes, the Lopamudra was actually created by sage Agastya and was given as a daughter to the king of Vidarbha. The royal couple gave her the best treatment, the best possible education, and brought her up in an extreme luxury. And when she attained a marriageable age, the Agastya came, and the great sage, who was under the vows of celibacy and poverty, wanted to own her. Now, after a lot of debate, finally the Lopa agreed to marry him and left her place for the Agastya's hermitage. After serving her husband faithfully for a very long time, she grew tired of the austere practices that were followed by the sage. And she was utterly disenchanted with the sage. And she wrote a beautiful hymn, which is in 2 stanzas, where she makes an impassioned plea for the attention and love of the sage. Soon after, the sage realized that he has not been fair to her and he has not performed his domestic duties properly. And then he reformed himself. You can imagine the greatness on the part of the great sage Agastya, that he reformed himself on the impassioned pleas of his wife, and then went on to live a very healthy spiritual and family life later on. And actually a son was born who was named as Deepdasyu, and who later became a great poet, and there are many hymns which are actually attributed to him. Another example that I can give you offhand is of Maitri. Again, very renowned teacher and very educated women of that time. And there are, though in Rig Veda there are about 1,000 hymns, and actually more than 10 of those hymns are attributed to Maitri. She was a great woman, philosopher and seer of her time. She contributed towards the advancement, actually the spiritual advancement of her husband, sage Yagvalakya. His personality and flowering of the spiritual thoughts of the sage. Maitreyi actually was one of the 2 wives of Yagvalakya. The other wife was Katyayani. The Maitreyi was well versed in Hindu scriptures and was a Brahmavadini. That means she had the absolutely first-hand knowledge of the Brahma. And so the Katyayani, on the other hand, was an ordinary woman. And one fine day, after living a full life, the sage decided to make a settlement of his worldly possessions between the 2 wives and wanted to renounce the world in conformance with the practices that were invoked. And the learned Maitreyi, when she was asked about her wishes, actually she asked her husband, the sage, Yagvalakya, whether whatever possessions he is giving her would make her immortal. The sage replied that all these possessions could make her wealthy only in the physical world. They won't help her in the spiritual world at all. Then she asked her what would make her immortal. So then the sage actually gave a very very uh, elaborate philosophical answer, which is one of the gems of the great discourse that we have in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. And this great discourse, but for her, we would not have been able to get it. Uh, on the other hand, there is another great lady, Gargi. The Gargi actually was a daughter of sage Vashanko, and she has composed also several hymns in the Rig Veda, where she questions the origin of all existence. Just imagine, even if we take it 5,000 years ago, not lakhs of years ago, even 5,000 years ago, somebody questioning his own existence, what is the purpose, who is he, what is she all, what is the existence all about, where has it come about, where has the universe come about, uh, those kind of esoteric philosophical ponderings that are contained in the hymns of the Gargi. She actually challenged the uh, uh, Yagvalakya when King Janaka of Videsha, of Videha, he organized the Brahma Yagya. And it is Brahma Yagya is a kind of philosophic conference that used to be organized around the sacred sacrament around fire. And Gargi was one of the eminent participants in the Brahma Yagya. And she challenged Yagyavalkya with a valley of very perturbing questions on the issue of soul or Atma. And actually, the Upanishad comes out very clear. It comes out very clearly that Yagyavalkya sage was left very confounded, and actually she was able to silence many eminent scholars of her time. And one of her questions, which I'll just read out, was that the layer that is above the sky and below the earth, which is described as being situated between the earth and the sky, which is indicated as a symbol of past, present, and future. Where is that situated? And this particular question seems to have stumped the great sage, and actually all the great sages of that time. Actually, the issue of women liberation or the women's status in the Vedic time is also closely related to the spiritual philosophy that persisted at that point in time. While the highest place was accorded to the women in the ancient times, and that seems to be the case continuing till the present day, uh, in the Vedic period, the primordial one, the great truth that the seers of all the Upanishads and the Vedic ages explored, actually is conceived as a harmony of Purusha. And this Purusha is quite different from the Purusha of Sankhya philosophy. If you remember, in the Sankhya philosophy, there are two distinct entities, Purusha and Prakriti. Here, the Prakriti is seen as emanating as from the Purusha in the Vedas. And in the same, and how does it happen? I'll give you maybe a very gross example, that we have air all around us. But when a jiva takes birth, the, the air gets converted into the shwasa, the breath. And when we pass away, the same shwasa, the breath, again melts into the air. So actually, it's the same way. The Prakriti melts into the Purusha. And for this reason, perhaps the great sages have, in their prayers during the Vedic times, uh, tried to be gender neutral. Let us look at many of the Shanti mantra, it will come out very clearly. For example, in the Taittiriya Upanishad, there is a Shanti mantra which says Om Sehno Bhunaktu, Om Sehna Vavtu, Sehno Bhunaktu, Sehiviryam Karvavahe, Tejasvinavdhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahe. Meaning thereby, may God protect both teacher and the student. May we be nourished together. May we work together with great energy. and may our studies be enlightening. I would end by with another Shanti mantra. Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kasyat dukha bhavet. May all be happy. Bhavatu sabhu. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gupta sir. It was a wonderful, very, very in-depth and very, very enlightening and informative talk that you have given. Indeed, it was great. And now I will request Ms. Gagandeep Kaur. Are you there?
Yes, sir, I'm there. Very well.
Yeah, please I invite you to take the floor and please give your talk. All yours.
So much. Thank you so much for this invitation. I think itne diggaj log hain. I hope everybody is comfortable with Hindi. Can I speak in Hindi or you want me to speak only in English?
No. You should speak in Hindi. In fact,
All
we have
right.
not done the justice by speaking in English.
मुझे लगता है इतने ज्ञानी लोग बैठे हैं, मैं शायद कुछ भी नहीं हूँ आप लोगों के सामने, पर मैं am sorry, with due respect, I will take only 5 minutes, not more. I understand we have already crossed the time limit. मगर माफ कीजिएगा, मेरा नजरिया आप सब लोगों से थोड़ा सा डिफरेंट है. मतलब आप काफी इंटेलिजेंट लोग हैं, I am nobody, तो थोड़ा मेरा डिफरेंट होना बनता भी है. थोड़ी आपत्ति है कुछ बातों पर मुझे और कुछ बातों पर I really appreciate few things. मेरी आपत्ति इस बात पर है, या I don't know how do you take it, but yes, it makes me feel very very amazed कि एक औरत की परिभाषा जानने के लिए मुझे चैट जीपीटी खोलना पड़ रहा है, मुझे गूगल से पूछना पड़ रहा है औरत कौन है.
That's why I'm saying तुम बहुत अलग कर गए वहां से. You don't know your audience.
Right? So I mean with very due respect and very humbly I'm saying, एक तरफ अगर हम अपने वेदों में संस्कृति में देखते हैं तो क्या बोलते हैं, शिव क्या बोलते हैं कि एक woman and men are not different, they are one. And my reservation against the men is by saying that we have a brain that has boxes, by saying that we are someone, you know, who like being kids and the woman is there to mother us, by saying or by putting women on a high pedestal, I think we do the most injustice on earth. If a woman is an equal individual, she would not like to mother a man, sorry. She is here to share her happiness. She is here to share her intellect. She is here to share her life, not to carry burdens. And अगर आदमी इतना ही पुरुषोत्तम है, अगर हम मानते हैं कि महादेव, देवों के देव मेल हैं, महादेव हैं, और बहुत अदब से, बहुत इज्जत से मैं ये बात कह रही हूँ, अगर हम मानते हैं कि सृष्टि की सृजना 3 मेल्स से हुई, the first one being Shiva, then being Brahma and Vishnu, and the other female parts are in very important counterparts who are the Shakti. But the notion of God is a very masculine character. तो फिर ऐसा क्यों है that, you know, men don't, they feel very happy when they're in that empty box, as sir was mentioning, oh, I feel so happy when I was retired and there was no worries to do and I was free on my own and my wife have to do everything. I think that I find very unfair. Why is it if a woman is there with you, why don't we work as a team? And by simply saying, oh, women are that ball of fire or that wire and they love taking all the pressure. Who says it? Have you asked a woman? Have you really asked a woman? Does she really want that pressures? I don't know. I think it's an easy escape out. And बहुत humbly मैं ये बात बोल रही हूँ, मेरा इरादा किसी को भी offend करने का नहीं है. And I'm sure हम सब लोग एक अपनी अपनी सोच से पैदा होते हैं, पर इसी सोच से मुझे आपत्ति है. और ये आपत्ति मुझे सिर्फ आदमियों से ही नहीं है, मुझे औरतों से भी है, because that's how we have trained our sons, who turn out to be our husbands later or fathers or whatever in the family. And बहुत अदब से मैं बात कर रही हूँ. Similarly, if I move down to the very great things that we were talking about women in the Vedic culture, सर गुप्ता सर आपने बहुत खूबसूरत बोला, मगर आई थिंक हम एक चीज भूल गए कि जिस गार्गी की हम बात कर रहे हैं उसे बहुत सारे मेल सीजेस नकार देते थे. सीता went against all male gurus to be taught by Gargi. She chose Gargi. I think we forgot that. We also probably forgot that Ahilya, जिसकी हम बात कर रहे हैं, she was punished for something that she was not responsible for. If Indra comes and acts like her husband, disguises himself and tries to get intimate with Ahilya, how is she supposed to be responsible? Why was she punished and made into a stone for 60,000 years? How fair is that? She had to wait for Ram to come and to revive her. I find it very unfair. मतलब अगर गौतमा सेज इतने महान ऋषि थे तो ये सारी महानता क्यों नहीं वहां काम आई? वो क्यों नहीं समझ पाए कि why am I punishing my wife? Yeah, how is she responsible? She was doing her duty. She thought it's me in the form of Indra. If I have to punish, I need to punish Indra, which Shiva did punish Indra. We do understand that. Why is it कि हमारे जितने भी लोग, चाहे हम स्वर्ग लोक की बात करें या हम पाताल लोक की बात करें, धरती लोक की बात करें, इन सबके आधिपत्य आदमी क्यों है? Why is not a female someone who's, the owner, so to say, or the king or someone who rules that? So it is a very masculine kind of a depiction that I find at a lot of places. Similarly, we are not understanding. मैं किसी को भी नेगेटिव सेंस में नहीं बात कर रही हूँ, मैं बस ये बातों को सामने हाईलाइट करना चाह रही हूँ. मे बी एक औरत के पर्सपेक्टिव से आई फाइंड फ्यू थिंग्स वेरी अनफेयर. एंड सिमिलरली अगर हम दीदी जी की बात करें, जिन्हें वज्र होने का वरदान मिला था शिवा से, none of us ever acknowledged that he would not have been able to sacrifice his life if his wife had not agreed to it. She was pregnant at that point, and Dadiji and Shiva tells us, in fact, he tells Dadiji that you need to take permission from your wife. I understand it'll be good to save the devs, because there is, we need that yantra, we need that weapon of Vajra to kill the asurs. बिकॉज उनको दान तो ब्रह्मा जी ने या मतलब जो भी हमारे गुरु जी हैं उन्होंने दिया है. बट इट वॉज द वाइफ सैक्रिफाइस who, despite being pregnant, who needed her husband as much as anybody else, agreed to give in. Somehow we don't acknowledge, or we miss that. If we get back to Ramayana, I often wonder, गुरुकुल, अगर हम उस प्रथा को भी देखें तो लड़कों को गुरुकुल भेजा जाता था, लड़कियों को नहीं भेजा जाता था. Hats off to Raja Janak, who said no, Sita is going to be a learned woman. She's going to study everything, and she was proficient not only in the Vedas, but she also knew Shastra. So Raja Janak is an amazing person that I have a lot of respect for. I mean, मेरी knowledge बहुत छोटी है, बहुत ही सुंदर होगी, शायद करे कि इनके बराबर होगी. तो हो सकता है मेरी बातें गलत भी हों, आप लोगों को गलत भी लगे. But I'm sorry, but जितनी भी मेरी बुद्धि है मैं उसी के आधार पे बात कर रही हूँ. I'm accepting my errors in the beginning itself if I'm at error, and I would like to be corrected. But at the same point, हम भूल जाते हैं, अगर रामायण की बात कर रहे हैं तो हमें लक्ष्मण, राम जी सब याद आते हैं, मगर लक्ष्मण की वाइफ की कंट्रीब्यूशन कोई नहीं भूलता है, मतलब कोई एक्नॉलेज ही नहीं करता है. लक्ष्मण was able to remain active not for 15 years of Vanvas if his wife had not taken that ownership and she was not sleeping. अगर वो निंद्रा देवी का अपने ऊपर नहीं ले लेती, हम somehow बात ही नहीं करते हैं, मतलब वो एक्नॉलेजमेंट ही नहीं होता. और अगर कुछ होता है तो हम एक बड़े हाई प्रेडिस्टेंस पे बिठा देते हैं, and that's where I have an objection. Similarly, if you look at Mahabharata, I'm just picking very few notes, and I'm sorry, I'll just wind up in just 2 more minutes. I will not take more of your time. Even there, if you look at Gandhari, she chose to blind herself. With due respect, it is her choice, well respected. There was no pressure. That is absolutely done. But द्रौपदी को सामान किसने बना दिया कि आप उसे दाव में हार सकते हैं? द्रौपदी की एक तरफ हम पूजा करते हैं कि 5 पतियों की वाइफ थी और उन्हें ऋषि जी उनसे सैक्रिफाइस मांगते हैं, and there was a proper system of how she is going to be managing her married life with all 5 Pandavas, and there was rules and regulations for it, very beautifully explained in Ramayana, in Mahabharata. But then why was she considered a commodity that she could be someone who could be lost? I mean, I have a little my reservations there. And हाँ, ये सत्य है कि और कल्चर्स के मुकाबले हमारे संस्कृति में औरतों को एक इम्पोर्टेंस दी गई है, मगर मुझे अभी भी लगता है कुछ कुछ अनफेयर हिस्से हैं, कई सारी चीजें हैं जिन्हें शायद हम एक्नॉलेज करना भूल गए हैं. एंड एज अ वेरी ऑर्डिनरी कलयुग की औरत with so many paps that I might have done, and a very, very ordinary human being that I am, I think, and this is my own personal viewpoint. I mean, I'm not trying to talk on the behalf of women, who the hell I am to talk on the behalf of women, but only from a very personal perspective. यार कभी किसी ने औरत से पूछा है कि तुम्हें क्या चाहिए यार? हर आदमी अपने हिसाब से एक्सप्लेन करता है कि जिसको आप एक्सप्लेन ही नहीं कर सकते वो वुमन है। क्या ही बात है यार ये। आई मीन a woman is as good, is as competent as you are. Biologically, the woman has all the ingredients that a man has. Both the sex hormones are present in both the genders. Woman is in no way neither superior nor inferior. She's only asking, probably, for her equal right. As simple as that. Why are we even magnifying her or minimizing her? Why can't we see her as an absolutely normal human being? Someone who's here to complete, someone who's here to contribute back. I mean, that's a very small kind of a reservation that I had. With due respect, I'm sorry if I have hurted someone. I'm sorry, मैं बहुत मुफट हूँ. मैं जैसी हूँ अब ऐसी हूँ, क्या कर सकते हैं? By default ही ऐसी हूँ मैं. And you're free to reject me. You're free to throw my ideas into a dustbin. But I'm sorry. This is my understanding, and I'm still very, very infant in front of all of you, just trying to make my sense. Thank you so much for giving me this platform. But I'm here to learn more. Thank you so much. That's all. I will just rest my case here.
Can I clarify?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sir, Vajpayee sir, we will give you the time to rebut or clarify or whatever it is.
I will try to. I will try to.
We will we are short of time. I will have to give first time to Vajpayee ji to complete his thing. Then we will come into the question answer session.
I will.
And I just want to tell Gagandeep, you have absolutely, you are on dot, and there is I mean, you put your point beautifully, and it was very valid. And there are I am not very I am not a scholar in this subject, but there are people who can maybe enlighten a little more. But I feel I am with you, and you have rebutted me, and I welcome it. And that validates my point that, see, an average man knows so little about women, because that is what the point I was making. And it is the fact of life. So I will not go more. I'll give a chance to, because Gupta sir wants to say something on what you have said, but I will invite first Vajpayee sir. Please take the floor and enlighten us with your thoughts.
Thank you. देखिए, ऐसा है कि I will also take the liberty of speaking in Hindi for a number of reasons. In fact, I will say in a mixed manner. पहली बात तो मैं जरूर दो लाइनें ये जो गगनदीप जी हैं इनके कंसर्न के बारे में मैं जरूर दो शब्द कहना चाहूंगा. बियॉन्ड ऑनर जो इन्होंने कहा बहुत सही कहा है, बड़ी अच्छी बात है. खाली कुछ चीजें मैं क्लैरिफाई कर देना चाहता हूं. जैसा मुझे लगा, इट इज माय परसेप्शन, कि शायद पहली बात तो ये था कि इट वाज इन सम लाइट ह्यूमर टू स्टार्ट द टॉक. सेकेंडली, मैं ये कहना चाहता हूं कि जो इंसिडेंट द्रौपदी का है उसको किसी ने कभी अप्रिशिएट नहीं किया है. सबने पांडवों को ही गालियां दी हैं और पांडवों ने ही उसका फल भुगता है. बस खाली इतना न भूलें कि द्रौपदी ने एक वाक्य बोल दिया था जिससे सारा महाभारत हुआ था. वो एक वाक्य 1000 तीरों के बराबर था कि अंधों के अंधे पैदा होते हैं. है, दैट इज वन पार्ट. रही बात सीता की, हम जान रहे हैं आपने सिया के राम वाले सीरियल से ये सीता वाली कहानी दी है. पर सबसे बड़ी बात, अगर आप मैथिल शरण गुप्त की एक किताब है, मैं आपको रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा, बड़ी पतली सी किताब है साकेत. उस एक किताब ने मैथिल शरण गुप्त जी को, जो राष्ट्रकवि थे, भारत भारती के बाद उनका भारत भारती बैन कर दी गई थी अंग्रेजों के टाइम में. साकेत उनकी बड़ी मशहूर किताब है, पतली सी है सिर्फ, लेकिन साकेत सिर्फ इसलिए बहुत ही आदरणीय है और बहुत ही मानी गई, मैथिल शरण गुप्त जी को बड़ा सम्मान मिला, क्योंकि वही रामायण की कहानी, लेकिन उसमें नायिका उर्मिला है. देखिए, हम बहुत बार जब चीजों को कभी एनालाइज करते हैं, कभी कभी ये भूल जाते हैं कि कोई जरूरी नहीं है कि हर आदमी समाज पर रिफ्लेक्शन डाल रहा है या उस पर कमेंट कर रहा है. तुलसी ने जो भी लिखा, दो बातें ध्यान रखिए. तुलसी ने पहली बात तो ये था कि राम उनके आराध्य थे. आप वाल्मीकि रामायण से कंपेयर करिए, बहुत सी चीजें हैं जिसमें राम की वाल्मीकि रामायण बड़ी आलोचना हुई है। बाली को छिप करके क्यों मारा, सूर्पणखा की नाक क्यों काटी गई, ये सारा उसमें है। लेकिन तुलसी ने राम को आराध्य माना है, तो आप उसमें पूरे समाज को दोष देने के बजाय ये उनका व्यक्तिगत वो था। और जब लोगों ने तुलसी, आप जब रामचरितमानस कभी उठाएं तो कृपा करके पहले देख लें, उसकी शुरुआत में तुलसी ने ही लिखा है, नाना पुराण निगमागम सम्मतम यत् रामायणे निगजितम क्वचित् अन्यतोपि। ये मैंने सब तमाम पुराण ग्रंथ सबसे लिया है, क्वचित् अन्यतोपि, लेकिन इसके अलावा कुछ और लिया है। और वो क्या किया है, स्वांता सुखाए तुलसी रघुनाथ गाथा भाषा निबंध मति मंजुल मातम होती, कि ये जो मैंने लिखा है अगर आपको नहीं पसंद ना पड़े, कि मैंने अपने सुख के लिए किया, अपनी समझ से जो मेरी भाषा थी, जो मुझे समझ में आया था, वो मैंने किया है। तो हमारा मतलब है कि समाज में इस तरह की चीजें होती रहती हैं। हमारा विषय आज का है, हम लोग बैठे यहाँ पर महिलाओं की, या वैदिक काल में कितना सम्मान था, शायद ये बीच बिगड़ गया बिकॉज ऑफ इन्वेजन्स, जहां पर डिफरेंट कल्चर्स में, मेनली इस्लामिक में, विमेन आर लुक डाउन अपॉन, तो उनमें कभी उसी का असर यहाँ आकर के, या सती प्रथा शुरू हो गई शायद औरतों को बचाने के लिए उनके इन्वेजन से। बाद में आखिर अगर माना जाता है कि पद्मिनी न जल जाती तो अलाउद्दीन खिलजी वुड हैव डिसऑनर्ड हर। तो इन चीजों को हम अपने समाज में, अपने कल्चर के लिए कोई कलंक न माने। ये परिस्थितियां होती हैं जिसमें बहुत सी चीजें मजबूरी से की जाती हैं। वैसे मैं जब मेहता साहब ये बोल रहे थे, नाउ कमिंग बैक टू ह्यूमर, मैं वैसे ही सोच रहा था कि अगर इनकी श्रीमती जी सुन रही होंगी तो आज इनकी खैर नहीं है। खैर चलिए, शुरुआत आप ही ने कर दी। दूसरा एक और मैं इनसे मजाक में कहना चाहता था कि जब इन्होंने कहा ना कि हटाइए हम काम यहाँ करने खाली हो, हमारे एक बहुत सीनियर ऑफिसर थे फोर्स में ही, तो वो कहते थे जब रिटायर हो जाना तो एक काम जरूर करना, 10 बजे तैयार वैयार हो के जैसे होते हो घर से निकल जरूर जाना, कम से कम 3 घंटे के लिए 10 से 1 तक, बिकॉज everybody at home, whether it is your lady wife or the maid, they are all used to some liberties, some of their own time. आप वहां रहेंगे तो नॉनसेंस क्रिएट करेंगे। आप बाहर चले जाएं 3 घंटा, चाहे पार्क में बैठ जाइए, चाहे सिनेमा देखने चले जाइए, चाहे लाइब्रेरी में जाके कहीं बैठ जाइए। तो खैर, दैट वाज इन लाइट ह्यूमर व्हिच आई सेड। अब मैं कहना चाह रहा था, मेरा सब्जेक्ट वैसे बड़ा ड्राइव और एब्स्ट्रैक्ट है, अर्धनारीश्वर, पर मैं वहां पर जाने के बजाय धीरे धीरे वहां तक पहुंचने के लिए मैं एक बात जरूर कहना चाहूंगा कि विदुर नीति से कहा गया है, एक छोटा सा वाक्य है, अनुकूले ही दाम्पत्य प्रतिकूलम न किंचन। देखिए कितनी महत्ता की गई है दाम्पत्य जीवन में पत्नी की, कि बोले जहां पर दोनों अनुकूल हैं उस परिवार में, उस गृहस्थी में कभी कुछ प्रतिकूल नहीं हो सकता है। और आप इसके अलावा देखिए कितनी ज्यादा महत्ता दी गई है देवियों में भी, क्योंकि हमारा सब्जेक्ट अर्धनारीश्वर है, तो मैं उस टॉपिक पे था कि शंकर पार्वती को मिला करके कहा जाता है। तो इसमें जैसे हमारी हिंदी की हास्य कविताएं होती हैं, उसी तरह संस्कृत के हास्य श्लोक भी हैं। तो उसमें एक है कि शिव के परिवार का हाल ये है कि स्वयं पंचमुखा पुत्रो गजानन षडाननो, खुद पंचमुख हैं, 2 बेटे हैं, एक हाथी की तरह खाने वाला है, दूसरे के 6 मुंह हैं, और उनकी फाइनेंशियल स्थिति क्या है, दिगंबरा, स्वयं पंचमुखा पुत्रो गजानन षडाननो दिगंबरा कथम जीवेत अन्नपूर्णा न चेत ग्रहे। माता पार्वती को अन्नपूर्णा कहा जाता है, उनका अगर ये न होती तो ये सब तो भूखों मर जाते। तो ये उनकी महानता है। और इससे भी बढ़िया, इट इज द अल्टीमेट, जो शंकराचार्य जी ने जब प्रार्थना की थी, जब उनका अपराध क्षमा स्तोत्र में है, तो उसमें एक बहुत सुंदर श्लोक है, चिता भस्मा लेपो गरल मशनम दिक्पट धरो जटाधारी कंठे भुजग पतिहारी पशुपतिम कपाली भूतेशो भजत जगदीशैक पदवीम भवानी त्वत्पाणिक ग्रहण परिपाटी फलविदम। जो चिता की भस्म रमाए हैं, विष खाते हैं, नग्न रहते हैं, जटाजूट बांधे हैं, गले में सर्पमाल पहने हैं, पशुपति और भूतों के स्वामी हैं, ऐसे शिव जी ने भी जगदीश्वर की जो पदवी प्राप्त की है उसका सिर्फ ये कारण है भवानी कि उन्होंने तुम्हारे साथ विवाह कर लिया, ये उसका फल उनको मिल रहा है जो इतनी उनकी पूजा हो रही है। तो हमारे मेरे समझ से ये विषय यहाँ पर थोड़ा सा शमन हो जाना चाहिए। अब मैं आता हूँ, मेरे पास समय बहुत थोड़ा है, पर कुछ मैं अर्धनारीश्वर के लिए जरूर बोल दूं, क्योंकि हमारे देश की गरिमा नारी से जुड़ी हुई है और श्रेष्ठता भी उन्हीं को दी गई है। ये जो भी विचारधारा है ये विपरीत शक्तियों में, देखने में विपरीत लगता है, पुरुष और प्रकृति में समन्वय, प्रकृति और पुरुष या नर नारी में एकत्व का दर्शन, यही अर्धनारीश्वर की मूलभूत कल्पना है। सर्वप्रथम भगवान शिव और देवी पार्वती को पुरुष और नारी शक्ति का प्रतीक माना गया है और इनके एकीकृत होने में ही समझा गया है कि पूरे विश्व का कल्याण, सारी शक्ति उसी में है। हिंदू संस्कृत में, आस्था में इन दोनों को, दैवीय गुणों को, इनके एकत्व को दैवीय गुणों को माना गया है। महाभारत में श्लोक है जिसका अर्थ ये है, अब समय कम है मैं पूरा पढ़ने के बजाय, जिसका है कि अर्धांगना भी पत्न्याम सुखद से विहरती किंतु भूषण मत सेव यत्नवत अंधकारिणी, कि अर्धनारीश्वर की पत्नी के रूप में, उसमें जो उनका हिस्सा है पत्नी के रूप में, पार्वती जी जितनी प्रसन्न और सुखी महसूस करती उतनी भरा कुछ आभूषणों से क्या करेंगी। शिव पुराण में भक्तों को अर्धनारीश्वर का कहा गया है कि यह प्रियत सब भगवान नारीश्वर ईश्वरा स एव च परो देवस तस्मै नमस्करो नमः। इसका मतलब है कि जो अर्धनारीश्वर के रूप में है वो शिव अद्भुतों में अद्भुत है, सर्वोपरि है, सर्वत्र व्यापक है। जब हम उनकी उपासना करते हैं तो यह भी ध्यान रखें कि हम भी उसी ब्रह्मांड का अंश है। हम ध्यान रखें, प्रयत्नशील रहें कि शिव और शक्ति के संतुलन से, एकता, शक्ति, ज्ञान से ही हमारा अस्तित्व है। Anyway, may we find inspiration in the divine form to seek harmony within ourselves, in our relationships and world around us. मेरी समझ से इससे अधिक मुझे शेखर जी समय न देंगे, मैंने वैसे ही जितना था मुझे उससे ज्यादा ले लिया। मैं आप सबको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद कहता हूं और आशा है हम सब बहुत प्लेजेंट फीलिंग के साथ इसको समापन करें इसका। नेक्स्ट जो भी, धन्यवाद।
आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद वाजपेयी सर, आपने बहुत अच्छी बात कही और आपके जो ज्ञान का जो आपका लेवल है, हमें आपको फिर से बुलाना पड़ेगा और पूरा टाइम देना होगा ये जानने, समझने और सुनने के लिए। तो वो हम अवश्य करेंगे, आपसे हम फिर टच में आएंगे और आपको हम पूरा समय देंगे।
पर्याप्त मेरे लिए, आप चिंता न करें
जी। और अभी इसके साथ ही हमारा फर्स्ट राउंड खत्म होता है। टाइम तो वैसे काफी निकल चुका है, बट फिर भी अगर मैं एक या दो क्वेश्चन ले सकता हूं, अगर कोई क्वेश्चन पूछना चाहे,
हम सब तैयार हैं,
जिसका जगी हो, तो I will invite and tell you can raise your hand. If not, then I will request Dr. Gupta to rebut and respond to Gagandeep, madam. Achha, there is one hand. This is Akansha Mehta. Please go ahead. If you want to ask something, you can go ahead.
Yeah. So I have a very basic question, yet very integral and critical to our society. Would like to ask any of the panel members that in today's time, if there's any one thing you can change in the society to bring more opportunity and sense of equality for Indian women, what would that one thing be?
Gagandeep, would you like to take? Because you will have a better view.
I don't know better or worse, but I think the best way would be, let's see each other as human beings and as pure souls, and let's help each other evolve and not make any judgments or opinion. I think both men and women are complete by themselves. That's how I like to see it. and we need equal opportunities, and nobody needs to protect anyone in that sense. मतलब अपना अपना कार्य करें और उनको एक समानता से देखें.
May I say just one line? मैडम आकांक्षा मेहता ने जो क्वेश्चन पूछा है, apparently it is a very general question, whereas the answer of this question for every lady, for every man may be different, because somewhere something is lacking, somewhere else something else is lacking. So giving an answer, and I in today's educated world especially, to say that we must treat equal, I think we all claim that we are doing it, whether fully or rightly or wrongly or partially, but I think that part is being taken care of in everyone's behavior in normal course. The only thing is that every individual, pair, couple, or any two persons will have different kind of problems which cannot be generalized by even a question or even by answer.
Very good, lovely. Thank you, Vajpayee. Dr. Gupta, will you like, is there any other question? Otherwise, I am inviting Dr. Gupta to, we wanted to say something.
Rishi has also raised his hand.
सर नो, में कोई प्रश्न नहीं है. ये कहेंगे कि वाजपेयी, ये जो अपने ग्रुप कैप्टन वाजपेयी जी की बात हमें बड़ी अच्छी लगी, जो उन्होंने पूरी बात शुद्ध हिंदी में की, और साहित्य और जो हमारे ग्रंथ हैं, जो धार्मिक ग्रंथ है, उससे उसका उल्लेख किया, उससे उदाहरण दिए. और यही जो बात आप उर्मिला की कर रहे,
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद.
हाँ जी, तो दूसरी बात आप उर्मिला की कोई कर रहे थे, या मैथिली, और वाजपेयी साहब ने इसका जिक्र भी किया कि मैथिली शरण को अपने की जो रामायण की किताब है, उसमें वो उर्मिला की दृष्टिकोण से लिखी गई है.
वो साकेत, किताब का नाम है साकेत.
बिल्कुल जी.
साकेत बेसिकली रामायण की ही कहानी है, पर उसमें अब आपने कहा तो थोड़ा समय फिर मुझे और लेना पड़ेगा. रामचरितमानस में आपको अगर कभी नोटिस किया है तो शायद खुद ही जानते हो, नहीं तो पूरी रामचरितमानस में सिवा सीता के बाकी तीनों बहुओं का नाम सिर्फ एक बार आया है, उनके विवाह के समय. बाकी किसने क्या बलिदान किया, जैसे मान लीजिए गगनदीप जी ने खाली उर्मिला की बात की. अगर आप डिटेल में जाएं तो जो भरत की पत्नी थी उसका भी वही बलिदान, वो वहां रहते हुए भी नहीं रहती थी, क्योंकि भरत ने कहा कि अगर मेरे स्वामी या भगवान राम वहां रहते हैं ऋषि की तरह, तो मैं भी यहाँ रहूंगा वैसे ही. तो इसलिए, लेकिन साकेत में उर्मिला को मतलब समझिए उनकी नायिका या हीरोइन अंग्रेजी में समझ लीजिए, उस ग्रंथ की नायिका वो हैं. और हर वक्त उन्होंने ये चीज दिखाई है कि जब कभी कोई कष्ट है तो उस वक्त उर्मिला पर क्या बीतती है. जैसे एक हमको छोटा सा उसका पद याद आ जा रहा है कि कभी किसी रात को, चांदनी रात को, वो अकेली यहाँ बैठी हुई है उर्मिला, तो वो उस वक्त बोलती है कि निस्तब्ध निशा के होने पर, आराध्य युग्म के सोने पर. आराध्य युग्म मतलब जो कपल है जिनकी हम पूजा करते हैं, मतलब राम सीता, उनके सोने पर. आराध्य युग्म के सोने पर, निस्तब्ध निशा के होने पर, यदि याद करोगे मुझे कभी, मैं समझूंगी पा गई कभी सभी. तो मतलब वो अपने पति के लिए ये विश कर रही कि भाई अगर ऐसे में सिर्फ मुझे याद कर लोगे मैं समझूंगी, तुम अपने कर्तव्य के लिए गए हो. तो वो चीज है. हमारा मतलब ये है कि उसमें ये कहना कि उर्मिला का अपमान है, सबने रोका, लक्ष्मण को न जाने के लिए रोका, सभी ने कहा. बाद में अगर पूरी कथा पढ़ें तो ये है कि उर्मिला को लक्ष्मण ने ही कहा कि अगर तुम साथ चलोगी तो हम तुम्हारी देखभाल करेंगे, या हम जिनके लिए जा रहे हैं उनकी देखभाल करेंगे. तो इस वजह से रुकना पड़ा. मेरा ये कहने का मतलब है उसमें कोई अपमान का या उनको छोटा दिखाने का ध्येय कहीं नहीं है. शायद न तुलसी का है न वो, क्योंकि कथा में कहीं उनका कोई और मतलब कोई चीज नहीं है, कोई घटनाक्रम नहीं है, तो इस वजह से उनका नाम शायद दोबारा या तिबारा नहीं लिया गया. मांडवी का भी, श्रुति कीर्ति का भी, तो कारण उसके यही है. और दूसरे तुलसी की अपनी व्यक्तिगत राम को इष्ट मानने की वजह.
थैंक यू वाजपेयी जी. Sandeep Kumar sir, we are a little overshot, but kindly give us a little more time because Dr. Gupta needs to respond. And Dr. Gupta, I will, while you are responding to Ms. Gagandeep's assertions, also try to cover one more question that has come on the chat box. And this is the very normally people talk about. Mr. Abhishek Dubey says, kindly elaborate on the shloka, Dhol Gawar Shudra Pashunari Shakal Tadna Ki Adhikari. And we all know about this
इनको ऐसा है कि ये
so
ये बहुत
comment on this
अलग
also.
विषय है, ये बहुत अलग विषय है. इस पर मैं इस बात नहीं करना चाहूंगा क्योंकि ये बहुत गलत तरह से समझा गया है.
जी हाँ, यही समझा दें.
और ये
तो ये
मैं
इनको
डिबेट
मौका
में नहीं
दें.
पढ़ूंगा. ये राजनीति हो चुका है, ये चौपाई है, ये श्लोक नहीं है, ये वहां हो चुका है. और ये उस समय का है. जिन लोगों ने पढ़ा है उन जाहिलों ने ये नहीं पढ़ा कि ये किस मौके पर कहा गया. समुद्र जब रास्ता नहीं देता है तब के लिए राम के लिए कहा गया उन्होंने कि देखो इस तरह के लोग जो हैं जो सुनते नहीं है. वहां पर वही, यहाँ किसी जाति से मतलब नहीं है लेकिन समझने का लोगों को है. ये पॉलिटिकल कैपिटलाइजेशन करने के लिए लोगों का है. हम इस बारे में बात करना उचित ही नहीं समझेंगे.
Dr. Gupta, please wind up in short and cover all these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Vajpayee sir, for putting the perspective. गगनदीप, मैं आपसे सहमत हूँ, लेकिन मैं आपसे ये कहना चाहूंगा कि जो आपने अधिकतर बातें कही वो पोस्ट वैदिक डेवलपमेंट्स हैं. वो वैदिक पीरियड के काल के पश्चात हुई बातें हैं. वैदिक काल के अंदर जो यदि मैं कहूँ जो प्योर सनातन धर्म आज जो हम प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हैं वो सो कॉल्ड हिंदू धर्म है. जो प्योर सनातन धर्म है जो अब बहुत कम लोग प्रैक्टिस करते हैं, वो सनातन धर्म क्या था वो ये समझने की बहुत जरूरत है. सनातन धर्म का एक ही फोकस यदि मैं कहूँ तो सनातन धर्म रिजर्व्ड इटसेल्फ फॉर एक्सप्लोरेशन ऑफ द अल्टीमेट ट्रुथ. दिस वाज एक्सप्लोरेशन ऑफ द अल्टीमेट ट्रुथ. That was the only task which the Vedic rishis performed. If you go through the Upanishads, Upanishads are the later part of the Vedas, the last part actually, they are known as Vedanta. Then Upanishad also has a very interesting meaning. Upanishad. Upa means deputy, niche. Ni means near, pass me. Shad means to sit. So any knowledge which you get after sitting near to the seer, जो गुरु से आपको मिलता है वो उपनिषद है. So Upanishads are basically the dialogues between the rishis and their pupils. And if you go through most of the Upanishads, there are questions which are asked of the rishis by their pupils. And the rishis have a very interesting way of transmitting knowledge. Actually much advanced than the knowledge that our teachers or our professors impart in the universities these days. The rishis never gave a definitive answer to their pupils. They only sketched the environment, they only portrayed the environment that was existing and allowed the people to draw their own conclusions. Ultimately, perhaps they indicated the truth has to be realized intrinsically by the people themselves. That cannot be explained to them by anybody. So there is something which is agochar, which avyakt, जो उसको हम सिर्फ महसूस कर सकते हैं. तो ये इसलिए मैंने कहा, if you remember the last part of my presentation, I said that they never differentiated between the genders. Actually, most of the prayers were gender neutral. So I think that so these are the I would say anomalies which have come in the later period, post-Vedic period in our society, maybe for various reasons, which we can have another discussion on that. I hope you agree with me.
नहीं, जैसे शंकराचार्य और मंडन मिश्र का शास्त्रार्थ बहुत मशहूर है.
Yes, sir.
उनकी रेफरी या जज मंडन मिश्र की पत्नी थी. and she was supposed to be no less than these two great पंडित और sages. और बाद में जब मंडन मिश्र हार गए तो उन्होंने कहा कि अभी आपने पूर्ण हराया नहीं, मैं इनकी अर्धांगिनी हूं, आप मुझे भी जब हराएंगे तब इनको पूरी तरह से हरा पाएंगे. तो मेरा मतलब है कि ऐसा नहीं है. ये कुछ लोगों के व्यवहार से हमारे समाज की रीति या जो हमारा कल्चर है, जो हमारी आस्थाएं हैं, वो खराब नहीं है. जयशंकर प्रसाद, अंत में बोलूंगा, जयशंकर प्रसाद की एक बड़ी कविता अच्छी है कामायनी में, नारी तुम केवल श्रद्धा हो, विश्वास रजत नगपग तल में, पीयूष स्रोत तुम बहा करो, जीवन के सुंदर समतल. धन्यवाद.
Can I just take 10 seconds?
Sure.
It was lovely listening to all of you. I just wanted to make one clarification. मैं किसी को ये नहीं कह रही हूँ कि हमारा कल्चर खराब है या औरतों की निंदा हो रही है. मैं ये कह रही हूँ, मेरा बात करने का तात्पर्य ये था कि हमारे वेदों में जो इतनी नॉलेज है उसे डाइल्यूट होता चला जा रहा है. We need to get back to it and we need to acknowledge women as much as we do the men folk there and put them at the same pedestal, neither too up nor too low. That was the only thing that I was trying to put.
It is undebated. It is undebated.
That's the only remark that I was trying to make.
Absolutely. So it was a lovely discourse, and I am sure I will invite my President IIRF, Brigadier Sandeep, who were very, intently listening to the entire interesting dialogue and all nook joke जो था. कुछ बड़े सीरियस थे, कुछ बड़े लाइट थे.
We admire his patience.
So now I will request Brigadier Sandeep to please give his concluding remarks, and then we will call this beautiful dialogue close. And we hope they meet again with some more interesting things and give more time to. Now we are familiar with all the three speakers, so I'm sure they can give us much more good discourse than the short time that we gave it to them. We did not do justice to them, I'm sure. Sir, all yours, sir. Brigadier Sandeep, sir. Sir, unmute your mic, sir.
You mute.
Thank you. This is what happens when somebody is totally involved in that and forgets to do what you want to do. So it was I was
sorry, Brigadier sir is speaking from Bangalore.
What's it? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So things are going on so well, and people are expressing what knowledge they have gained over a period of time, which usually in current context, there are very few people who actually get involved in this sort of acquisition of knowledge, because we come up and I would say in our generation, people are only worried about how to become a doctor, engineer, or these are the basic things, and then lawyer or something like that. But there were a few people who are actually involved in fact, I am lucky to have my wife is totally into this. She teaches me a lot of things on these issues, especially Gita, and she keeps attending all these things. And many of these things which you're telling, I was, my wife was telling me all these things. Good. In fact, I heard more, and it was very good. Nice to, this is a field which, in fact, it's a time that we, in the way things are happening in India, this is the time that, this sort of knowledge is imparted to people concerned. And entire people, especially the new generation coming, so that there's a lot of lessons in all these things. There are a lot of lessons. Firstly, the way women are seen by today's world is something which I could never stand, because the way things are happening, it's very sad to see certain things. I come from Kerala. It was such a place where all there is equal rights for everybody, and there are more ladies, more women than men in this thing. There is no discrimination. But today the things are not like that. I'm seeing it, hearing it, reading it, and it is very sad to see it. So I would in the meantime, I have Colonel Vijay here, who is who was a president and who is dealing with, who is a lot of knowledge, Dr. Vijay, is got a lot of knowledge on these issues. I would request him to say a few words before I finally wind up and say thanks to them. Vijay sir. Yeah, yes, sir. Now over to you.
I'll just take a second. First of all, good evening to you. I joined a little late, and I heard everybody with rapt attention, and I'm absolutely amazed at the kind of the knowledge we have. And I wonder sometimes where all these things have been hidden. And I heard Gagandeep ji and views. I'm totally subscribed, but I would only like to say that I fully agree with you that we are all equal, but most of the women emancipation and reforms have come from men, especially in the recent, whether it was sati or whether it was this thing. So the concern by men, and also I'll give my own example. My grandmother was widowed at 8, but she was not permitted to marry by the women of the society. So our Samaj, so it's not man versus women, we are all the same. And if you go back to the earlier times, and also it is unfair to compare what happened in Satyuga, which has happened 6,800 years or 9,000, nobody exactly knows the chronology. But then things at that time, for instance, in our own lifetime, I'm well past 70, we have seen the things which we did in my, the younger age, today, I would not even like to do that. Thing has happened. There have been some instances, I think we can talk some other time. There's a lot I wish I had known earlier. I got a little busy last week due to various reasons. I was not able to contribute. Otherwise, I heard Mr. Bajpai, I heard Mr. Gupta and a few others. And I feel myself blessed that, I could, this thing. I think we could have it, we could have continued the thing. There's so much of knowledge, so many people know. And with what my little understanding of Upanishads and Sanskrit, I am a student of Purana Itihasa, and my main thing was all that. And most of the stories, some of them you've taken, this is mithya. It is not from, it is from Puranas. It is not from our, so some of these things are, it is wrong to extrapolate a particular instance which happened 6,000, 7,000 years, and they're all aberrations. And we don't subscribe to that at all. And we don't even have to feel ashamed, because that is how the society has evolved. So with this, I thank you all for this patient hearing. It was a very short, off-the-cuff the comments. I wish I get a little more time to share with you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you, Vijay sir. So it has been a very nice beginning which you have done. And over a period of around I would say around 1,000 years, more than 1,000 years, 1,500 years, Indian men had come to a level of protecting the women because of various issues which you all are aware. So that is why all this sati and all those things has come. That is how at least things. The way the invaders or the people saw the women was totally different.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's an aspect which I would like to say. I would like to end. We are already overshot time. Thank you very much, and my pranam to everybody. And it will continue. I'm sure we will continue with this later on also. And specific subject and more knowledge can be shared across the board. In fact, I also bring children onto this, because they are the people who are going to be next generation. And if we can do something for them, it will be very good. Thank you very much. And it has been great. Thank you.